Welcome to the Clear Brand Academy podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. I'm your host, Alexander Toth, and I'm joined by my co-host, Josh Ramsey. Today we're talking about reaching the market. We're going to go through, we're going to define what all of the pieces of that mean, how to do it, what it looks like in reality, and give you some great examples of this. And I've got to be honest up front, we actually already recorded this podcast, but we couldn't use it because I had the wrong microphone hooked up.
Yeah, but it's so much more fun the second time.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Before we get into Reach the Market, I will just share a story John Cleese shared when he was doing Monty Python, which is kind of, the first version of SNL, essentially. And he had written a skit and loved it. It was a hilarious skit, and he lost the script. I was like, oh, come on, So he looks everywhere, can't find it, but he really wants to do the skit. So he sits down, he rewrites it, and he's like, oh, man, this is not going to be as good. But they do the skit, it's as good as they can get it at that point. Months later, he finds the original script. Mm-hmm. And he goes and he reads it, and then he goes and rereads the second version of the script. And he realizes the second version is way better.
It makes sense.
Because he'd already, and his theory is he'd already had time to process it and all this stuff. But we have that feeling of the second one's not going to be as good. So we'll just go into this thinking and hoping that this is going to be even better than the first version.
And if you're a new listener to the podcast and you're curious about who I am, my name is Josh Ramsey. I'm the Business Development Manager at Clear Brand. And as Alexander said, we're going to be speaking about reaching the market, how to reach more people with effective marketing and advertising. And I'm super excited because I made a few bad mistakes in the last one. Not on the data that I referenced, but some of the things I said, I was like, I could have said that better. So yeah. I'm excited about.
Now we get round two. Now we get to say.
We should probably get into it because it's been a couple minutes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So
great.
We want to reach the market. Now this is part of the 3 parts of marketing that we've identified. Mm-hmm. We're really standing on the shoulders of giants here, people who've done lots of research, and we're kind of
best way to do it,
codifying it, right? So we don't want to take all the credit here, but as far as what marketing includes, there are 3 things. Build memories is number 1. Number 2 is maximize availability, and number 3 is reach the market. So we've already done an episode on build memories, and we did another episode on maximizing availability. So if you want to go listen to those, I would highly recommend it. Today we're going to be focusing in on that 3rd element of marketing, which is reaching the market. Now, as far as we can tell, basically all marketing, we've never come across marketing that does not fit into one of these 3 buckets. A lot of marketing will fit into more than one, though. So if we picture like a Venn diagram, we have this overlap, right? And so sometimes something is both building memories and maximizing availability, or maximizing availability and reaching the market. And we're going to kind of look through a little bit of that today, with our primary focus being on understanding and then being able to do the reaching the market part.
And before we jump into any of that, I want to encourage you as our listener right now to let go of any assumptions that you have. We have this idea at Clear Brand, you can't fill a full cup, right? And so if you look at this and you're like, oh, this is so simple. It can't be that simple. I've been in marketing for 30 years and it can't just be building memories, maximizing availability, and reaching the market. Really want to encourage you to just give this a think, because it has been astounding working with our clients, working with other marketers on the podcasts, the space that we play in, and talking to people. This model invites such profound questions, and it's going to just help you open up so many more opportunities for optimizing your marketing, because you're going to be coming back to the fundamentals and not getting lost in the busyness of being busy doing the things that you're busy with because you have to be busy. So just to say that, please, let's head into this with open ears.
I think strategies are often, marketing strategies, marketing approaches are often focused in on the thing, the activity, right? Oh, we got to do Google ads. Why? Because everybody else is doing Google ads.
Yeah.
That's not really a why, right? And so that's what we're going to get into that's what these 3 things, building memories, maximizing availability, and reaching the market do. They get into the why. They give us the right questions to ask. So let's discover what this question is for reaching the market. So first, let's talk about those 3 words, because I think that a good definition of reach the market will be a good starting place here. Mm-hmm. So with reach, how do we want to approach reach? If we split this up into 2 main parts, right? We got reach and we have the market, right?
Yeah.
How do we want to approach this?
I was hoping you weren't going to
idea?
ask me to define the. I was like, well, that word, it's going to be harder to define than the reach and market. But if we think of reach, if I think of reach, and literally first thing I see is a hand going out, like trying to grab something, right? It's an active movement. It's going towards. So in terms of reach, I'm thinking about these customers that are out there, and we're going to define where they are, because they're not necessarily in a big field waiting for you, but they're out there, and we need to reach them. We need to get in front of them. We got to be doing something that touches them, that gives us an opportunity to interact with them. Yeah. So that's what I think of in reach.
Yeah, I think about it in terms of it's the yin and the yang with availability, right? So when we talked about maximize availability, what we want to be is we want to be available and in stock where people are looking for us. So they are coming to these different distribution channels with availability. They're going to the grocery store, right? If you sell milk, you want to be in the grocery store. They're going to Google to look for something. They're going to Amazon, But in availability, we just want to show up and be in stock where people are looking. And that's where like SEO and Google ads come in. So I see reach as kind of the yin to that yang, where reach is, okay, these people are not necessarily looking, and we're going to them. We are reaching them where they are.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that who's the active and who's the passive actor in this scenario. Now, when we're reaching, though, we have to get noticed. And so we're gonna when we get to our question, you'll see that this is part of it. But getting noticed is huge, because if we reach out, if they're searching for us, they're doing a lot. They're the detectives, right? They're the ones who are moving forward, and they're looking to find something like what we sell. We need to be findable, right? But when we're reaching them, we need to get noticed. If you think about commercials, I know lots of folks who, TV's not really as much of a thing these days, but they'd mute it when the commercials came on, or you're paying extra money to not watch ads on, Hulu.
Yeah.
So we really try to avoid advertising.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so part of this reach is going to be getting noticed, and we're going to define how to do that. How do we actually get noticed? But that's part of it too. It's not just reaching out. It's actually having something that people see, pause, they notice, it registers in their brain.
Yeah. And I'm in the last version of this podcast, I spoke about this sheepdog and the sheep, because the sheep want to run around to all these different fields. Like I want to go into memories, I want to go into emotions and how we distinct. And there's a podcast for that. So we're going to keep focused on reach and the actions that we need to be taking in this. But
So just to give a little context there, we were kind of running all over the place in the last version.
Oh yeah.
Running down the build memories category, running down the maximize availability category. So we're going to keep this one more specific here. So let's talk about the market. What is the market?
Oh man, it's just a limitless field of consumers and customers that are just waiting. They're actually just not doing anything until you arrive and make them an offer. And then
they just have their money in their hand.
Yeah, you just activate them. You just walk up and you're like, hey, we do this thing, and they go, oh my gosh, yeah, cool, that's
right. Okay. So all marketing is just tapping them on the shoulder, and they give us their money, right? They're falling out of the sky. We just got to have a big enough bucket.
Big bucket, running around. No.
So we're gonna call the market is anybody who might buy. Yeah. Pretty simple definition, but I think it kind of flies in the face of what a lot of marketing gurus are talking about, which is the target audience. So we're going to talk about the market instead of the target audience. So let's talk for a second about how marketers approach the target audience, because they're using a couple different terms, and man, they sound really smart when they're using these terms. Things like target audience, things like niches. But let's like put it in perspective here for a second. Let's talk about Apple, right? Everybody loves talking about Apple. And in fact, people have misused Apple's story to try to justify a target audience or a niche, and they kind of go hand in hand. So, according to the marketing gurus, what Apple should have done when Steve Jobs came back in the 90s, right? He shut down a whole bunch of different products that they were making, and he focused in on the Mac, right?
Yep.
Excellent strategy. Now, according to these marketing gurus who love target audiences and niches, Steve Jobs should have selected a group. Let's say financial advisors who make between $1 and $5 million a year. And then he only sells to financial advisors who make between $1 and $5 million a year, right? Somebody comes to him, hey, I'm a designer. I'd like to buy your laptop. No, sirree.
No.
We do not sell to designers. We are Apple. And we only sell to financial advisors who make between $1 and $5 million a year. So I'm sure that you can already see the fault in what would be typically described as a target audience, all right, or a niche. Now, people are absolutely misusing the term niche. The way that we approach it, and I'm going to use a different term here just to quickly define this.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We call it focus because you need it. But the term niche at this point is so convoluted. I don't even want to use the term anymore. But what you do need, and this is what Apple actually did, is you need to know what you're selling. And you're not going to go make up a new product or a new service for every single customer who comes along. So when people are talking about a niche, this is what they should be referring to, but they're not. Here's our focus, right? That's what we're going to call it. Yeah. We make this kind of computer that has this kind of memory, that has this kind of speed, this kind of interface. And anybody who wants to buy it can buy it.
Yeah.
But that's the computer that we're going to make right now.
Yeah.
Right? You go, I mean, even now, Apple does not have that many products. If you compare Apple to like Samsung or LG or, I mean, very, very limited. But they each of their products has this very specific focus. Even looking at the difference between the iPad and the Mac. Very clear focus.
And I think there's a spectrum that's really helped me understand this. If we have a spectrum on one end, if you're on YouTube, you're seeing my hands up in front of your screen. If you're listening somewhere else, just imagine that there's a spectrum. On the one hand is this focus on target audience. It's the focus on the user. Focus on the user. Is this a financial guy, 1 to 5 million? Is a designer? And then on the other side of the spectrum is the use. Focusing on the use, right? So what can this product be used for? And so the focus, we want to be focusing on the use because we don't want to assume who can use it. And because, as you would have heard in our maximizing availability, we want to be available to as many people as possible. So we don't want to assume that only certain users can take advantage of our product or service. We want to make it available to anyone that can identify, well, geez, I need that use. I needed to use it for that reason. So I just like that frame in terms of the focus because there is a focus, but it's not on the user, it's on the use of the product or service.
Yeah. Now, in order to grow, so simple math here, bigger companies have more customers. Great. So in order to grow, we need to get more customers. How are we going to do that? We're going to expand our target audience. We're going to expand our uses, right? And you can see this with the iPhone. When the iPhone launched, it really had three things. And you go watch the Steve Jobs announcement, and it's just like so old school, right? He's like, this is a phone, it's an iPod, and it's a breakthrough internet connection device. This is how he described the iPhone. So that's all it did when it launched. It didn't have an app store. Think about that. An iPhone without an app store.
Yeah.
So they launched an app store. Okay, and now they had this marketing. There's an app for that. and they're really trying to say you can basically do anything you want with it.
That was totally a joke. Hold on. I mean, that was a good period of my life. That was a running joke that was good for 3 or 4 years. It was like, there's an app for that. Oh, I can't remember where I put my breakfast cereal. Oh, there's an app for that.
I mean, that's good marketing.
Do you know how to get your kids to tie the shoe? There's an app for that.
Yeah.
There's an app for that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that it was Apple, to be honest, because I live in South Africa. It's way less penetrated by Apple.
Yeah.
So, news to me, but we knew it, even though I wasn't an Apple user. I wasn't even in the ecosystem. It was just general language. Yeah.
Right.
Very effective.
So they expand from basically doing music and internet to having an app store. There's a gap of some years there, but recently, just to jump a little bit closer to where we are now, they're really focusing on it being a camera for pictures. That was a few years ago, and now a camera for videos. That was more recently. The iPhone 13, they launched cinematic mode. So they're constantly expanding these uses, and they're gonna do those things well. So let's go back to the definition of the market. The market is anybody who might buy, right?
Yep.
We at ClearBrand are not a fan of shutting down somebody who wants to buy your product because they're not in your quote target audience, or they're not in your quote niche. Right?
Avatar.
Right. They're not
Avatar is a great movie. That's the only thing an Avatar should be used for is to go and watch a great movie.
Yeah. I mean, people are, it's a good starting place, right? There are some things that matter.
Yeah.
For example, if you, I just had a conversation with a landscaping company. They are location based, right? If they're on one side of the country, they cannot go to the other side of the country for landscaping services, right?
It'd just be very expensive.
Right. So they have part of their, which audience, right? Target audience, part of their market is location based.
Yeah.
Great. We know that now. Awesome. If you sell something expensive, people have to be able to afford what you sell.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
if somebody can't afford it, they can't buy. So they're not in your market. But people are going way too far with this stuff, right? They're saying things like, you got to know what kind of coffee they drink. You got to know their political party. You got to know what they do on the weekends. The only time I care what kind of coffee somebody drinks is if I'm selling coffee. That's the only time it matters.
Yeah.
Right? But if you don't sell coffee, there's no reason.
Yeah, this is what I really love about talking to you about these kind of things, Alexander, because I'm like, okay, we're going to do it this way or that. And you're like, hold on. No, there is value in the idea of a target audience because there are some demographics, there's some financial implications, but we don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole there. So thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate
absolutely
taking the good and bringing it along for the ride.
Yeah. So let's talk about where where the target audience is necessary before we then just jump into reaching the market, right? The target audience is helpful when you have limitations. So specifically, the biggest limitation that we typically run into with our clients is limited budget, right? I mean, anybody on the planet is a potential Apple customer. I have seen pictures of people in tribes who have an iPhone, right?
Yeah.
So anybody on the planet is a potential Apple customer.
Yeah.
Apple has the budget to reach them. You might not. Right? So we're going to, if we have a limited budget, we have to make decisions somehow. And that's where we can have a target audience to get more specific with our budget. Do we want to focus on a certain age group? Because most of our customers are in that age group. Not all of them. We know that we are missing some people. But our limited budget is actually what's missing those people. Yeah. So we just have to know where to spend our limited budget, right?
Yeah.
Having a location. Maybe you want to focus in on one location for a little bit and become really well known in that one location, even if you're not location based.
Yeah.
Great. Right? So we use the target audience to take our limitations and then to make intentional decisions. Okay, so I feel like we kind of defined it. We got reach, we've got the market, so now we're going to go reach the market.
Yeah.
So what is the question that we use here what is the question that we're going to use for this reaching the market?
Well, just for a moment, I want to bring back the idea of this open field of the market, because when we mentioned that, we spoke about what it wasn't, right? We said it's not this limitless field of customers that are waiting to get tapped on your shoulder. And it might have been that 100 years ago. But
I doubt it.
You're
but
not the only,
maybe.
well, probably not, but you'll see where I'm going with this.
Yeah, okay.
Where I'm going with this is that there are countless companies that are in that same market, and they've been tapping on people's shoulders, and you're not the only person tapping on these shoulders, right? So that was the image I wanted to bring in, that it's not just you and all these potential customers, it's you and countless other companies that do a very similar thing to what you do, and they're also tapping them on the shoulder, and they're handing out, sweet smelling flowers to get attention, and everyone is doing something to try and get noticed by the people that might buy, right? Because this is the potential customer that's in our metaphorical field, and that takes us to the question, like, who is there? How can we get noticed? How can we get noticed by the people that might buy? And I think that's a useful question to think about as we go into how do we reach the market.
So you said two things, and I want to unpack both of those. So the first thing, we're really talking about competition, right? When you're saying that somebody else is and has been tapping them on the shoulder, it's true. And this is where, at ClearBrand, we see marketing as it's not this get rich quick scheme, right?
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're in a very easy industry, and hallelujah, super glad for you, most people have competition.
Yeah.
And that's where these marketing gurus who are going after the get rich quick scheme, and you can make $1 million in 30 days. No, you can't. I'm so sorry to say it, but you've got competition, right? And your competition is also doing marketing. And so doing good marketing gets you a seat at the table.
Yep.
It's not the only thing that you need to do to win, right? It's like going from playing pickup basketball to playing in the NBA.
Yeah.
You have competition, and they are also good at marketing and sales.
Absolutely.
That's how they're still in business.
Yeah.
And so we got to keep that in mind with all of this. So that's the competition thing that you mentioned. And then the second one was the question. So if you could just say that question again, this is the question that we want to answer as we're approaching our strategy for how do we reach the market.
Yeah. And again, deceptively simple, but super powerful. And here's the question. How can we get noticed by people who might buy?
Okay. How can we get noticed by people who might buy? So there's a lot there. So part of it's getting noticed. Part of it's by people who might buy, right? So getting it in front of lots of people, anybody who might buy. The whole market is where we want to get to eventually, but we're going to start small. We're going to acknowledge our limitations, and we're going to know that, hey, this year, we're not going to hit everybody. So who do we want to hit this year? Next year, we're going to have more revenue. Let's expand a little bit. Let's increase our connections with uses. Let's increase the way that we've defined our target audience.
You mentioned something right there, connections with uses. That sounds very, very important, because we were talking about focusing on the user, which we can do to optimize our limitations of budget and human resource, all the rest. But now focusing on the uses, this connection to the uses, this seems important to me because we're about getting noticed, right? And people notice things that they need. And people notice things that they need when they are clear and when they remember that, oh, hold on, this thing is connected to the use that I'm trying to solve. Like, I have a problem, it needs a solution. And so if we connected our brand and product service to that use that will solve their problem, this seems important. Can we unpack that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good. Yeah, great observation here. So you're going to have some kind of a use for your product, right? And the question there is, how would I use the product? Pretty simple question. And you're going to have a use, at least one. Otherwise, the product wouldn't exist, right? So if we think about Advil for a second. Launches, what's it for? Pain. Okay, excellent. Now, a lot of people have that problem, and they can use Advil for that use. But it was pretty big when Advil was labeled as something that could prevent heart attacks. I think this was Advil, right? It's Bayer is the company. Now that's a new use. Now that expands their potential market, right? In fact, research shows that bigger brands have more connections with more uses. So this whole idea that you've got to be known for one big thing is actually a myth, right? That's a use. That's one use. And we do have to start somewhere, and we need to have the internal clarity. But eventually, and again, this is all about expanding. In order to grow, you need to get more customers. So we're going to expand our target audience. We're going to expand the uses, right? So Apple, starting off with internet, music, and phone, adding in an app store, focusing on the camera, focusing on video. This year, with the iPhone 14, you now have satellite connectivity. It'll also detect car crashes. So now they've made it this emergency device. That's huge. That's a new use.
Yeah.
Kleenex, I think, is a fun example of this. They started in 1924, and the original use of Kleenex that they were marketing it for was to remove cold cream from your face. Now, we had to look up what cold cream is.
We did. It seems like such a 1920s kind of description of a product.
Yeah.
That's right. You can get cold cream.
It's still around. You can still buy it.
Yeah.
You'd use it to remove makeup from your face, is our understanding.
That's how I use it. But.
That's how you use it. Okay, good. Yeah. Well, that's why you look.
Well,
so
actually,
good
funnily enough, I have used it because of my background in acting. So
that's
I've
right. Yeah,
used
that's
cold
right.
cream many times.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that because we had a good conversation about acting last version of this. We'll go there in a second. So, removing cold cream, that was the original use. And now Kleenex started.
Sorry, you just said removing cold cream. Use cold cream to remove makeup. Yeah.
Yes, but Kleenex was used to remove cold
cream,
to wipe off the cold cream. Right. So you use the cold cream to remove the makeup. You use the Kleenex to remove the cold cream. Now it makes sense. People back then carried handkerchiefs, right? But cold cream's got a whole bunch of fat in it. It's a fat-based cream, and fat's really hard to get out of fabrics. So that makes a whole lot of sense. We want a disposable handkerchief for that, right? Well, people started writing into Kleenex and saying, "Hey, we're using this to blow our nose instead of our handkerchiefs, right? Because everybody's carrying these things around." And they would, pull it out, blow their nose, and put it back in their pocket, which I know some people still do this.
My dad, if you're listening, you've got company.
There it is.
In the 1920s.
Yep. So people started writing into Kleenex and saying, "Hey, we're actually using this as a disposable handkerchief," is what they were calling it. So keep in mind, Kleenex started in 1924. Okay, they did some research. They surveyed. They found that 60% of their customers were actually using Kleenex as a disposable handkerchief, and so in 1930 they shifted their marketing. So the first thing to point out here is that that's 6 years.
That's a lifetime. In a
right.
business.
When you're starting and running and growing a business, 6 years is a really long time.
Yeah.
Here Kleenex is, though, 100 years later.
Yeah.
So they switched their marketing in 1930 to be focused more on the disposable handkerchief idea. They doubled their sales. And then they continued to build on these uses. They added a man-sized version in the 40s. They started printing the Kleenex in color. They started putting the box in these different designs. Now you've got like the aloe version and the lotion version and all of these, right? So just continually expanding. Okay, let's make this easier to use. Let's make this more pleasant to use, right? Let's see if we can expand to a wider market. Instead of just women, let's get into the man-sized version.
And I think something just, that I want to pick up there is super important is that, and, I've got experience in this in the kind of coaching space that I, the career I've had along the way was in coaching and organizational development. And there's this understanding that communication, the meaning of communication is defined by the interpretation, not the intention. So how I am understood is what defines actually the meaning that has been transmitted. And here we have Kleenex saying, "Here it is, guys, cold cream remover," and the market is saying, "This is the use, in fact." And because they were listening to that, they could then pivot. But I think this is a trap that companies fall into, where especially if they've got very strong sense of identity or what it is that they're doing, and we see that a lot in, this company mission is to do this thing, and it's like, well, that's great, but it's actually being used for this. Where are you gonna go? Are you gonna exclude people that are using it for this and tell them they're using it incorrectly, they should go use something else? Or are you gonna embrace what the market is telling you? And
I mean, that's
a
great point. There's this big focus on companies having, like, starting with a mission statement these days. Your step one, create your mission statement, which is so wrong. Jim Collins in Good to Great talks about the hedgehog concept, and it's great companies have this focus on one main idea, one main kind of approach to how they're doing things. They have a way to make money with it, and they love it, right? So that's kind of, those three things are kind of the combination that makes a hedgehog concept. And just to clarify, having this one clear approach is different from having one marketing message, one use, right?
Yeah.
So great companies have this hedgehog concept, but what Jim Collins pointed out is the average company took 10 years to figure out what their hedgehog concept was, right? 10 years. I mean, Walgreens, I think, was one of the examples that took 10 years. I mean, a lot of companies don't even make it 10 years in the first place.
Yeah.
But, I had a conversation with somebody. I was coaching some new guides through becoming StoryBrand certified guides. And so, these are marketers. They're going to go out and they're going to help folks. And that's always an interesting experience to see, okay, who's the next generation who's helping people, So I'm coaching these folks, and there's some gurus in that space who really focus in on that mission statement and having your clear idea of what you're going to do and basing everything else off of that. And so one of the folks that I was coaching came to me and said, hey, I wrote this mission statement, but it's just not working. Am I allowed to change it? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got, this idea, the mission statement, the target audience, we've got to be holding all this stuff loosely.
Yeah.
Which is another part of why we want to...
Hold it loosely and listen deeply.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, listen deeply. Yeah. That's a big part of why I'm not a big fan of target audiences, is because whenever people define their own target audience, they're almost always wrong. We talked about Harley Davidson in one of those two podcasts, the Build Memories or Maximize Availability, but just as a quick recap, if you picture who you think buys Harley Davidsons, right? The tattooed guy with the beard, with the biker gear, 3.5% of revenue comes from those people.
Yeah.
I've
got a little piece of curiosity before we move on.
Okay.
Why the hedgehog? The hedgehog
versus the fox is where this comes from.
Okay.
So the fox is very cunning and crafty and changes its strategies and, has all of these plans, right?
Yeah.
But the hedgehog does one thing. The hedgehog curls up into a ball.
Yeah.
And so the companies that did not become great, they were more like these foxes. They're constantly, what's our new strategy? What's our new breakthrough program, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to change all the things.
Push your tail.
I'm I'm the smart guy, right? And the hedgehog's just there. Hey, this is what we do.
What's up?
Right?
What's up, guys?
Right. But what's interesting,
Cool.
3M is one of the, man, I could talk about Jim Collins all day, but 3M's one of the great companies.
We'll do a podcast on.
And you look at all of 3M's products, and this is going to go back to uses. You look at all of 3M's products. What in the world is the unifying factor here? Right?
Yeah.
Because the hedgehog concept does have this one thing. What is the one thing we're going to do? Which, again, is different from having one thing that your products can do. One use, right?
Yeah.
So what is the one thing we're going to do? 3M's hedgehog came down, I believe it came down to, if I'm remembering right, it came down to patents. So they, essentially the one thing that they do is they invent. And they had this approach to invention and patenting these new ideas, right? That's their one thing. Are they known for that? No. And that's where we want to separate out the marketing from the business.
Yeah.
Is 3M going out and doing marketing about how much they invent things? No. They're doing marketing for each of their products, and each of their products has uses. Right? And as a company, they've expanded into all sorts of uses. Right? So is 3M known for one one thing? No. But do they do one thing? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to take it to an even deeper, simpler question before we get straight back to how we can get noticed by people who might buy.
No, we got to talk about strategy. We keep going.
I know.
We're going all over the place in different directions this time.
But the question I want to use to tie in, these uses and the 3M stories is actually a very profound question and a hard one to look at if you're in startup and you're trying lots of things. Is what I do useful?
Yeah.
Because this is really, like, if it's not useful, don't waste your time marketing it.
Yeah.
What are you doing? So, yeah. So let's, I mean.
Yeah, and that's something, we've helped people launch products. And that's a tough space, because the person comes in absolutely committed that their idea is going to work, but they have not validated it yet. They haven't sold it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's this whole process, and we talk to startups about this every single time we take on a new startup who has not sold their product yet. Hey, it's going to take some time. You're probably going to have to change your product around a little bit. You're going to have to find that product market fit. You have to figure out what do people actually want to buy. How much do they want to pay for it?
Yeah.
Right? And I think all of us should be doing that all the time. Is our pricing still correct? Are our services... Because remember, we're competing with people. We're competing.
Yeah, the market's changing all the time.
And the market's changing, and our competitors are innovating. Are we keeping up? Is our pricing still competitive with theirs? Is our services or products still competitive with theirs?
And I think all of these things that we've been speaking about tie into being noticed, right? Because if the pricing is way wrong, you're not going to get noticed. If you're not useful, you're not going to get noticed. There has been a golden thread. I'm being
thank you. Let's come back. Let's talk about
over here.
Let's talk about how do we get noticed.
Cool.
Okay, so I want you to share your acting story. Your audition story, because it's such a good picture of this. Because I think it's hard for us to keep in mind that we have competitors because we often can't see them. Why don't you talk about your audition? Okay,
so firstly, there were hundreds, and that is also good.
Hundreds of auditions
to be aware of. Like that there are hundreds of auditions in business and acting, and one of them or two of them will turn into a deal. And generally, I mean, the audition process is quite interesting, and there's some parallels because you're all sitting in a room, you're in a casting director's room, and there's all these other individuals, there's all these other competitors, right? And you're kind of being nice to each other, but you're kind of like, oh, he's here. Oh, no, gosh.
Oh, man.
Thought he was out of town. Oh, man. Okay, cool. Well, so there is that. And then what was very interesting in the way that people show up is there would be some people who would just do things completely differently. They would show up in the kind of wardrobe that would just be, you're not trying to look cool. You here in a flamingo kind of T-shirt, and they were quite memorable. So that's a component of it. They got noticed because they were distinct. They didn't look like everyone else looked, which was very, very good in that case. But again, it gets you noticed. It doesn't get you to the end of the deal. So then you go into the casting director's room, and there's lines, and there's an acting piece you got to perform out. And in that space, what I think is interesting is the skills that you bring to the table, right? So casting director is looking for a monk, a quiet spoken monk who's very good at swinging a stick around. And I've studied all these skills, and I got them on my headshot card, and I can be a great horse rider, and I've archery skills, and I've been in theater, and I've done this and Hamlet and whatever. But that is not the use that this casting director is looking to fill. So it is not relevant. It's no good that I go in there and say, hey, I can do all these other things. He just wants to know, can you do the thing that I need you to do? And if I can, that's what I need to focus on. And then I go in and prepare. And I think the last kind of parallel, which is quite interesting in this space, is authenticity. It's that spotting a fake or being the kind of slimy sales vibes where somebody is you don't feel like there's a real belief in themselves that they are useful in for this function. It's kind of, there has to be a level of confidence that this person can deliver in a big set with multi-cameras and big extras, and you got 60 people on set, and you're burning $10,000 a day to capture video, and if this person can't handle it in an audition, what's going to happen on the day? So there was this sense of, can I spot the fake? And they're going to be kind of pressure testing you there. So that's my acting story.
I love this so much because it's just so perfect for business. So first off, you actually get to look at all of these other competitors that you have.
Yeah.
In business, we don't get to do. So that's massive. But I want to. There's a lot that you said. So let's unpack this a little bit. So first off, I found it interesting. You're telling me that if you've got skills as a swashbuckling pirate and you can do backflips and aerial, silks or whatever, like you're flying through the air and you're applying for a monk role, they don't care? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if it doesn't fit the use that they have for the role, it's not important. And
so,
So
if you're differentiated, we could say, it doesn't really matter. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, because everyone's got something amazingly special. This guy, he's a stand-up artist, and he can get up and rip jokes and kill it. This guy, he can do headstands because he was a yoga instructor before he became. This guy, he's got 6 toes.
So everyone has their list of differentiations. Okay, so that's kind of hard to keep track of for a casting director.
A casting director, absolutely. Okay. And I'll tell you, I mean, listen. These guys shuffle through hundreds.
Yeah.
Hundreds. And 3 seconds in, next.
Man.
And so they're looking for distinction. They're looking for...
And they're looking to solve their problem, it sounds like. This is what we need.
Yeah.
I don't care if you can do 3 backflips in a row, because this monk is not going to do 3 backflips in a row.
No.
Right. Okay. That's great. So then you talked about something else, memory here, right? So you got to stand out enough to get noticed, and this is why we're talking about this. We're talking about getting noticed, right?
Yeah.
And then be remembered.
Yeah.
And you're using this word here, distinct.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about this.
So I think there's very many ways, and there's a funny story. I was actually modeling in Greece at the time, and I was going for a men's health
well, let's just pause here for a second. All right, if you're not on YouTube, you got to switch over to YouTube so that you can at least see Josh here, knowing that he's a Greek model.
No, there's nothing on YouTube about it. And
I mean, just watching this episode, right? We get to see your face. We get to see this nice chiseled statue of a man.
Oh goodness. Listen, the point of the story is that I had to take a bus like 90 minutes in, we use centigrade, 40 degrees. It's very hot, sweaty, all the way across Athens to get to the cost.
40 centigrade, I think that's in the 80s or 90s.
It's horribly hot and horribly humid. Okay. We had to go all the way to the other side of Athens to get to a casting director's office. And I walked in and I was super angry. I was like, this is unbelievable. You make 100 models come out here to just talk to you. You could have just sent a representative of our side. We all live that side. And I think that was one of the reasons I ended up on the shoot, because everyone else is like, oh, please, can I? And I was the one distinctive person that was like, you guys are full of rubbish.
Yeah.
And,
you stood out.
I got booked. Yeah, I stood out. Absolutely.
So if we're going back to business here, right? We picture 100 people sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
Okay. How is the person
all
who's going to choose?
All special in some way, right?
All special, all differentiated in some way, yeah, right? But you've got all these people sitting next to each other. How is a casting director going to choose? They need somebody who's going to stand out, right? And this is exactly how it works in business. So there's a couple phases. First, when a person goes to buy a product, there's a couple phases. The first phase is they enter the category. They decide, I need to go buy toothpaste.
Yeah.
They have not decided which toothpaste yet, but they've entered the category. They're going to buy toothpaste today, right?
Toothpaste will be bought.
Toothpaste will be bought, right? Same thing with your audition here. Somebody's going to get picked. Somebody's going to get hired, right? Okay, so now what happens? Well, you got to be in the room. Anybody who's not in the room is not going to get picked. Yeah. Okay, they're not in the room, right? And that's where we talk about availability. We talk about reach. If somebody does not know that you exist, you're not going to get picked. pretty easy. So that's why we want to be available, and that's why we want to reach the market. We want to be in the room. We want them to know that you exist. Okay, now they know that you exist. So next thing that they're going to do is they're going to create a short list. They're going to look at these companies. I don't want to pick from 100. I want to pick from 4. That's a much easier decision, right? So you got to get onto that list of 4. How do we do that? We got to stand out, right? This is kind of what you're saying here. You're not the only person who stands out. They might have 6 out of that 100 who stand out. Guess what? That's way easier to make a decision, right? You got to get noticed. So how do we stand out? In the world of marketing, we want to leverage distinctive branding. Your brand needs to be unique and memorable. It's got to look the same in all of your advertising. Right now I feel like we've wound all over the place. We're finally getting here to the strategy. Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Now, we talked more about this in the build memory, so I'm not going to go too far here, but all of your reach the market advertising, right? All of your advertising needs to be distinctive, consistent, and memorable, right? It needs to look different from your competitors, because if you look similar, they can't tell which one you are. So visually, this has got to be similar. So this is branding. This could also include your messaging. And what we find in messaging is clarity is the best differentiator, right? And we also, this audition thing is perfect, right? Everybody is differentiated. All of your competitors are differentiated. So at the end of the day, if you're working with a marketer who's like, we need to make sure that you're differentiated, they don't know what they're talking about, right? It's like snowflakes. Everyone's a nice, unique snowflake. Does that mean that you should not have differentiators that make you better than your competitors? No. But what it means is your customers can't tell the difference, right?
Yeah.
So we need to first stand out.
And there's humility here.
Yeah.
There is humility here because, there are brands out there that say, of course our customers know who we are when we call them up and we say, hey, we're that marketing agency. And you got to admit that to the customer, because a lot of us are focused, or there is a lot of focus on differentiation, to the customer, they go, oh, that's that different one and that is different to that one, but they don't know which one is which is distinct. Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely. And I think it's things like, if we're looking at toothpaste, this toothpaste uses xylitol as a sweetener. This other toothpaste uses something else as a sweetener. How many people know the difference? How many people even know what xylitol is, right?
Yeah.
It is good to have for the people who do know. But for a lot of folks, it's just another snowflake. It's really hard to tell. So the first and most important part there is that we're distinctive, that we stand out, that we're memorable. So when somebody sees us, they can recognize, oh, that one's different. That one, I've got 8, landscaping companies I'm looking at, and they've all got a tree logo that looks exactly the same. But this one, I remember that one, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about with that distinctiveness.
So I think something as we discuss and we transition now into really what does this look like in terms of building a strategy. To keep in mind, you just mentioned this. There's 8 options and they've all got a tree logo. Being aware of the competitor assets, the competitor, what the competition is doing, how they're positioned, where they are reaching this market, this limited market where many competitors are trying to reach. And I think this comes into how we think about our strategy. Where are our competitors spending their marketing? Where are they reaching this limited market that is available? Yeah.
Let's drive this home. All right, we've been here for a little bit. I think that it's been a great conversation, but let's jump into that strategy now. So the question is, how can we get noticed by people who might buy? That's the question that we're going to be answering here. And the reason why we start with the question instead of the strategy, instead of the answers, and you're going to notice a lot of very familiar marketing activities here. But we start with the question to expand our horizons, right? A lot of marketing agencies aren't thinking about billboards, and they should be. Maybe we need to have a billboard. So we want to do some competitor research here. We want to know how much are they spending? Where are they spending that money? Where are they going out to get in front of people? Do they have a billboard? Do they have Facebook ads, right? Do they have display ads? Are they partnered with an influencer, right? These are all things that reach the market. They're all things that get that brand out there. What are they doing? Is it working? How much are they spending? We want to know this stuff because we're competing with them. So we've talked about budget in the past, and the short version of the budget conversation is that the smaller you are, the higher percentage of your revenue you've got to spend on marketing, because you need to take customers from your competitors. That's how you grow, right? So really, you've got to be matching their spend, potentially even outspending them, right? If they've got 1 billboard, can you get 2? Things like that.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to compete, right? You don't show up to the NBA and say, oh, we're going to sit here and high five the other team and we're all going to walk away happy, right? No. You got to win. Yeah. You got to take the ball and you got to go drive it to the hoop. That's what we're doing.
Follow Kobe's example. Kobe was good at this.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to ask, where are people who might buy?
Yeah.
Where are these people, right? And we're going to use our competitor analysis to help fill in the gaps, because these folks have also asked the question, most likely, and they're also out there advertising, unless they're terrible at marketing. So where are people who might buy? Where are these people? Are they on other websites? Are they following certain influencers? Are they listening to podcasts? Are they in a certain location, right? And this is where having a target audience can be helpful, but we're not going to say no, like I said at the beginning, to Apple only selling to financial advisors making between $1 and $5 million. Doesn't make any sense. But if we happen to sell a lot of product to financial advisors, that's good to know. And then we can ask, where are the financial advisors? Are they at conferences, right? Are they at events? How do we go to where they are?
What are the other problems that they need something useful to solve? Can we build connections with the usefulness that we have, so that more of them will notice us when they think about solving a problem? Because there's a connection to a use. Yeah. Right.
So and okay, I gotta stay focused here. All right. So
sorry.
We've got that question. How can we get noticed by people who might buy? We need to get in front of people in order to get noticed. Then we need to have good, creative, emotional advertising with distinctive branding in order to get noticed. We want to keep our market as broad as our budget allows. Let me list off some things that count as reaching the market, right? Some typical marketing activities that you can use. But you're going to be asking the questions first to determine which of these would make sense for your company. So things like display ads. So those are the banner ads on other websites like Forbes or something has tons of these display ads. We've got Meta or Facebook or Instagram ads, video ads like YouTube, Hulu, Netflix, even TV, social media outreach. Specifically the outreach part is what I would consider the most important part for reaching the market. You can count social media as that if a lot of folks are finding you, right? But that's part of what we've realized recently is marketing activities don't count as marketing unless they're working, right? So if you're posting on Facebook every day and you've got 5 followers, you're not doing marketing.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're increasing your number of followers, that can count, But social media is tough. Cold calling would count.
I'm biting my tongue here.
Okay. Cold calling would count. Cold emailing. Influencer marketing. Finding influencers have a lot of followings, right? Partnerships would be similar to this, even if they're not influencers, but there's a person who has maybe an email list or who has a following. Do we want to partner with them to get the word out? Getting on podcasts, getting interviewed on podcasts or TV, right? Getting interviewed can be helpful. Having incentive programs like affiliates or referrals or rewards or contests, these can be helpful. Getting links on other people's websites, press releases, events like conferences, trade shows, road shows, things like that. And mentioned billboards. So those are that's just some brainstorming. That is not an exhaustive list. And that's why we want to start with the questions, right?
Yeah.
How do I get noticed by people who might buy? How do I get in front of people and then get noticed by people who might buy? So your answers might be slightly different from what we just talked about.
For example, the new Amazon toy catalog 2022 that arrived at my brother's house, old school, sliding pictures and quizzes and maps and coloring, and toys with no prices on them and QR codes that mom and dad can go and scan and purchase. So
you know what's funny? We were talking about this in the last version, which I think this is brilliant, right? If anybody does not need to have direct mail marketing, it's Amazon. And yet they're using direct mail marketing, right? They're reaching the market. Direct mail is totally on this list here. But since we recorded the last version, I actually received one of these catalogs.
Oh, did you? No ways.
We received a fashion catalog. Did not ask
based on
Amazon
based on your
this.
purchases,
right?
Based on your purchases, Alexander. Although,
so I mean, this is a great way. Direct mail is a great way to reach the market. And here Amazon, this massive company that does not need to do that, is doing it. Right? This is just clear to me that there's no excuse.
Yeah,
no excuse for us.
Yeah,
we got to be
similar to iPhones and Apple. Partnering with carriers.
Yep.
Being in Best Buy, being in Walmart, being in all these.
Again, does Apple need to be in Best Buy? Probably not, but they are.
Yeah.
Because that's good marketing. That's good availability and reach. Yeah. Where are people who might buy? They're at Best Buy. So let's get into Best Buy, right?
Yeah.
All right, I think we got to wrap this one up here. This has been good.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's been a fantastic conversation. I do want to add in, of course, that we have a lot of ways to do this at ClearBrand. We got 2 categories of working on marketing. The one is a done for you. We partner with you to take on your marketing, basically become your internal marketing department and do all of that marketing for you, from website building all the way through digital marketing and beyond. And then the second version is done with you. Mm-hmm. So we're there for the mom and pop shop that wants to set up their side hustle and needs to build a site with a course and a website template, all the way through to training in-house marketing teams for small to medium-sized businesses, and even partnering with agencies to help them scale their growth. So please send us an email, hello@clearbrand.com, so that we can chat to you, figure out what it is that you need to accelerate your marketing growth. And we want to do that with you because we believe that businesses change the world. Entrepreneurs change the world. I live in South Africa. This is a wonderful place to realize that if we don't do something, we can't rely on anyone else to. So we really want to be there for entrepreneurs and businesses and help you improve your marketing. Get hold of us.
Let's do it. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to the ClearBrand Academy podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. If you liked this podcast, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to outsource your marketing to our team, go to clearbrand.com.